Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. Thanks for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and for the next 90 minutes, we are going to talk about all things photography, while my mission is to help you develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. Do me a solid, gang. Come on. It only takes 2 seconds. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. In fact, if you're a member of a Facebook photography group, spread the word. You can do it one of two ways. The easiest, click that share button. Where is it? Right down there, right underneath the video. Or you can go ahead and you can share the link that I'm going to put in the chat window right now. It is tog.chat/live. And of course, please check in. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're from. It is always awesome to see who's tuning in. We've got Alexander here from Poland. Let's see, I've got Ken here from the UK, a couple people from the UK. Lynn is here from New York. I got Dark Link in El Paso. Steve's in Michigan. Russ in New Zealand. Good morning, Russ. We got a ton of people here. So I got Germany, Marcus, Perluigi in Italy. How cool. Ricardo in Ireland. Ricardo, I am sorry for our politicians, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? Anyway, so how's everybody doing? I hope that we are having a good week so far. It's a holiday week here in the US, so, you know, everything's just kind of out of whack because we had Monday off. So I'm just kind of catching up, and I head out of town Friday morning so that I can spend the weekend in Berkeley, California. I'm going to be at Looking Glass Photo. So, you know, let's get a couple business things out of the way here really quick, right? So let me just switch over the web browser here. Where to go? I lost them. There they are. Okay, so Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to be in Berkeley at Looking Glass Photo. We're doing a 2-day Olympus event there. I hope to meet a lot of you. There's a couple spots left, okay? Saturday morning, I'm doing my fashion portrait demo with small lights. Saturday afternoon, it's an experiential, 4-hour experiential, small group. I think it's a maximum of 12 people that they're allowing in. And you are actually going to get to photograph the model that I will be using in the morning for my demo with me as your assistant. So you will be able to make your own unique photos to come away from that event. And then Sunday morning, 8:30 a.m. I'm sorry, I didn't pick the time. I'm normally in bed at 8:30 a.m., but we're gonna do an early morning photo walk in downtown Berkeley. I've been doing the Google Street View, found some really, really cool locations right near the camera store that we're gonna work with. We have 2 awesome models for the Saturday or the Sunday morning photo walk. So, hey, if you're near Berkeley, if you're in the Bay Area, you know, Oakland, Emeryville, San Francisco, even if you're up in Napa or even further north, be there. It's going to be a great event. It's a great opportunity to obviously meet me, talk some photography, but also get to shoot, build up a little bit of experience, and kind of have me looking over your shoulder while you're doing it. And then one last reminder here for TogChat, next week, Pixel Photo Fest. Look, if there is any way that you can, in fact, here, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me share the link for Berkeley, all right? So there is the Looking Glass photo link. I just put that in the chat window, okay? And next week, I'll tell you straight up, if there's any way that you can make it to Cleveland, Ohio, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's the 13th, 14th, and 15th. You do not want to miss this event. This is an awesome event. Some people, I heard somebody call it Shutterfest 2.0 because it's kind of like Shutterfest. I hate to tell you, even though Pixel Fest is only 2 years old this year, Shutterfest is quickly going to become Pixel Fest 2.0. Just saying, okay? So 16 instructors, some like heavy duty names. I mean, look at this speaker list here, okay? There's this guy named Edelman that's going to do the keynote. So I get to kick it off Friday morning, another 8:30 a.m., which I'm pretty sure they made me the keynote just because they figure I'll keep everybody awake that early in the morning. But Scott Robert Lim, Lindsay Adler, Meg Lokes, Miguel Giles, Griffin Hammond, Marcy Reeves, Zachary Allen, Karen Mercer, Brian Manier, Matt Hernandez, Logan Deddy, Jim Kopnick, Bobby Froman, Sarah Byrne, Sam Young, and TJ Houston. Awesome, awesome event being held in downtown Cleveland. They're going to have tons of models there. You can shoot until your heart's content. Starts early in the morning every day, and I am sure it's going to go well past you-know-when at night. The events, I think, run until like 8:30, 9 o'clock each night. People are going to hang out shooting. It's going to be 3 days of non-stop photography. So seriously, it should be a really, really great time, okay? So that being said, those two things are coming up. Don't miss them. I want to share with you a cool piece of gear that I got in the mail. So I haven't had a chance to use it yet. It just arrived yesterday, but I've opened it up and it turned out they sent it just in time because the announcement happened today. So actually, let me switch this screen over here. I'll show you the website first, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the item. It's from the folks at Spiffy Gear. Spiffy Gear are the folks that make the Light Blaster, which you've seen me do videos on. They make Specular, which you've also seen me do a video on. The new thing here, and this is cool, they are called Lumi. Lumi is literally wearable LED lights. Now, it's not as cheesy as that may sound. In fact, this is like really awesome. So let me explain. First of all, I'll show it to you in just a second. 95 CRI, right? So we're talking high quality light. You can recharge these things. They are small, they are lightweight, they roll up, they go flat. They're multicolored. You can get them in an RGB or you can get it in a bicolor so that you can do daylight or tungsten balance. So let me show you. This is a Lumi, right? So the cool part about Lumi is 3 little buttons down here on the bottom. First one turns it on. Second one adjusts the different colors. Third one will adjust shades within the colors. Now, what's great about this, it's got a little hole in it here. The recharge end is at this end. I can hang it. I can stick it behind something. If I'm shooting video, I can hold it close to a subject. I can wear it. It's like a slap bracelet, okay? What's amazing about that, so you guys know my live composite shots that I do. You already know how this is going to get put to use, right? So imagine this with a model wearing it and the long exposures. This is going to be cool stuff, okay? So they come with the RGB bracelet, which is the one that you see me playing with here. That's this one. They also have a bicolor, same size, same everything else, except it's basically between tungsten and daylight balance. These things sell for like $49. They're awesome. Believe me, it's going to be one of those things. And even just to be able to do, with the bicolor one, just a simple fill light on camera that's not too bright. You know, obviously, cameras are getting much better at handling low ISOs, even micro four thirds. We don't have to worry as much about always working at base ISO. We can push our ISOs a little bit, still get great results, and use lights like this just to do a little bit of fill for the scene. So really, really cool stuff. I put the link there in the chat window if you want to check out Lumi. And then I also thought that I would share, just for the fun of it, just so that you guys know that every now and then, I actually do take pictures that aren't portraits or fashion portraits, etc. So here's a shot. I'm just going to grab it off of Facebook. I don't actually have the file on my machine here right now. Here's a shot that I did here in Allentown, where I'm located. Every Labor Day weekend, they have an event called the Great Allentown Fair. You know, it's like one of those county fairs. So I have not had a chance yet with the Olympus EM1X to try the live ND feature. So this is not one of those live composite shots that you've seen me do. This is live ND, which is basically neutral density filters that are built into the software of the camera. So I was able to put the camera on a tripod. I went obviously with a very low angle, and I decided to go kind of a little bit counterintuitive, and I included the railing. Normally, you know, we try to get past the railing. I would have, like, you know, stuck the camera right up to the railing, poked the lens through it, but I was like, you know what? The railing just added a little bit extra, because from that low angle, the lines were all keystoning in. They were going towards the ride. And with the live ND, I was able to get this kind of combination of blur and also ghost images, which I just thought it was kind of a really, really neat effect. So indeed, every now and then, and now, you know, there are people involved, right? But every now and then, Joe does shoot stuff that's not actually a portrait. So there you go, okay? All right, so let's switch this back over here. For those of you that have not entered any questions yet, hey, what are you waiting for? Type them in there. We've got time. I've got a few lined up already, so I'll start with the ones that I have here. But please, put your questions in, put your topics in. I mean, if you're here, obviously, I assume you want to learn, so what do you want to learn about? Oh, and by the way, I saw Matt Seuss drop in here. I want to, for those of you, so obviously, I'm a people shooter, right? So that's where most of my education comes from. Matt Seuss is a guy who is a recent Olympus convert. Not that I had anything to do with that, because I don't think I did. But anyway, let me, I just want to share his website with you really quick. So Matt, I hope you're still here. But even if he's not, check this guy out, man. We are talking like, we're talking some pretty serious stuff. I mean, his work is just outstanding. He is also a photo educator, does a lot of really, really amazing stuff. But you know, you can see here just some of his work that he's got, you know, both for sale and obviously his portfolio. Absolutely incredible. So I highly encourage you, check this guy out. I'm not going to lie to you. I've only made his acquaintance recently. Still haven't met him face to face, but made his acquaintance online. Absolutely fell in love with his work. And I think, you know, probably one of the things I really like about the guy the most is that he's very sharing with information, like I try to be. And he is clearly very, very passionate about what he does and very energetic about what he does, which, you know, also kind of fits into, you know, my way of doing things. So I have a lot of appreciation for that. Okay. All right. I think I got all the news out of the way. So let's dig in here. I got a couple questions that came in early. So let's go ahead and we'll start with those. This one came from Ajax. Sadly, yesterday, Peter Lindbergh passed away. Indeed, he did. Ajax goes on to say his work is amazing. I mostly knew of him by the amazing portraits that he took of Cindy Crawford. You know, interestingly enough, and so for those of you that don't know, Peter Lindbergh was a very, very well-known, at least in the fashion world, German photographer. And indeed, you may not know of him by name, but you know of his images of Cindy Crawford. They are some truly iconic images. And actually, quite a few of his images of the supermodels from the early to mid-'80s are iconic images from that time period. So Ajax goes on to say, I recently discovered that he preferred the women he shot not wear any makeup, and often their hair was a bit disheveled, which gave it kind of an organic feel. And then, of course, he frequently didn't pose them. He asked, was I inspired by him? Is there anything you took from him and implemented into your own work? So sadly, no, but for not reasons that you might think, Ajax. Actually, growing up during my formative years as a photographer, I really was not aware of Peter Lindbergh. At the time, he was not high profile on the education side or the famous side of the photography industry. Because keep in mind, in the early 80s, mid 1980s, like the only way you really learned about other photographers was magazines like Popular Photography, Modern Photography, American Photographer. You learned about other photographers if they were fortunate enough to be published in Look or Life magazine, or maybe even National Geographic. So we didn't have these photo celebrities, you know, like we do now. And obviously we didn't have the internet that allowed people to see more of the work. So we frequently saw his images, but not necessarily with a byline, or certainly not in the context of talking about his photography or his style. So he was one of those guys that for a lot of the photography community kind of, you know, went under the radar for many, many years. And of course, it wasn't until much later in his life that people became very aware of who he was. So from the standpoint of early influence, no, you know, very little. If anything, probably just the motivation to go photograph pretty girls, because obviously, you know, his images of Cindy Crawford and so many of the supermodels, you know, which is incredible, right? But yes, definitely a great loss, incredible talent, you know, truly an amazing photographer. All right, next up here from John. What are your thoughts on using a grade card? Do you use one? He says, I have a small credit card size one, but I've never used it. But I have noticed slight differences in the skin tones in the same shoot. So let's start at the beginning. What are my thoughts? In a perfect world, if you're working in a studio especially, everybody should use a grade card. Notice I said in a perfect world, right? We should do that. I use one occasionally. Not a perfect world, right? The occasions where I will use it is if I'm working with a lot of really crazy color mixes and the raw file that I'm getting has a really weird color shift that I don't want. Now, let's break that sentence down, right? Because I said raw file, which means that I could, go into Photoshop and post, and I could fix that color super, super simple because it's raw. But for the sake of mentally creating my shot in the studio, especially if I'm shooting tethered and I'm watching it on a computer screen, I still want the colors to be looking the way that I want them to look, or the way that I think they should look. So if I'm creating a color setup, because you guys know I use lots of gels, I use lots of bright color backgrounds. So if I'm creating a scenario where it's really just messing with the camera's auto white balance, or even if I've got my white balance set at 5600K to match my Godox strobes, if it's messing with it, then I will go ahead and I will do a custom white balance and I will make the adjustments just so that I'm seeing on my screen something that's a lot closer to where my end result is going to be. It just gives me more confidence about what I'm doing, makes me feel better about it. Also saves me time because I'm not kind of trying to process in my head, well, okay, it looks this way, but I'm gonna make it look that way. And especially if I'm in a situation where I'm sharing those images in real time, either with a client or with my makeup artist or my model, then it's also really, really important that I go ahead and white balance properly so that the makeup artist is seeing her makeup in the colors and the way that she intended it to be seen. If there's a client involved, so that they're seeing their products and their shots in the way they wanted them to be seen. So that's why I say, John, in a perfect world, yes, you should. It's a great idea. Do I do it all the time? Honestly, no, I won't lie to you, I don't. Even when I shoot videos for YouTube, I start out I do a real simple white balance with a white card. So I always start with a white card, and that way when I drop that clip into Final Cut on the timeline, just one eyedropper click, and it just gives me awesome, awesome white balance by doing that. So yeah, I mean, anytime that you can take the time to do it, it is ultimately going to help you on so many different levels. But there are people that would make the argument, but it's raw, I can fix it later. Well, yeah, of course you can fix it later because it's still recording all the data, okay? All right, next one here comes from Shamel. How would you define a good portrait? Whew, okay. He goes on to say, I know it's broad since a portrait can be many things, but what would make you say that's an amazing portrait? So interesting enough, Shamel, you've asked me what I would say is one question with two different answers. So let me explain, right? If we could leave out the last part of your question, the part that says, but what would make you say that's an amazing portrait? And if I could just answer, how would you define a good portrait? I would say a good portrait is a photograph that creates a moment that is engaging, that shares a little bit about its subject, and probably most importantly, meets the needs of the subject or client, or my needs, depending on what I'm trying to create. But now if we're going to add in, but what would you say, what would make you say that's an amazing portrait? Well, that forces me more in the direction of something that's going to be artistic or creative. At least that's my interpretation of your question. So for that, it's going to be less about does it meet its need, maybe more about does it meet my concept, my idea, but really it's more a matter of visually, is it stunning? If it's kind of a simple portrait, maybe like those backlit black and white portraits that I posted recently on social media. For those, it's all about the subject and it's all about the moment, the expression, that connection that the subject has to the camera. You notice when I do those kinds of shots, those stripped down, really simple lit shots, my subject is staring straight down the barrel of my lens. Almost always. Because I want that one-on-one connection. I just literally want that shot to grab the viewer by the ear and not let you look away. So, if it's a shot where there's a lot of makeup and a lot of color, then it's a matter of, does it all come together to create an interesting theme that grabs me and draws me in and directs me to ultimately the subject's eyes, even if she's not looking at the camera. But indeed, does it create a moment that I can glance at and appreciate as a work of art? So I hope that didn't sound too artsy-fartsy, but it really is. The way you've asked the question is kind of two different potential answers there, okay? And I've got one more from Shmel that came in early. I'd like to hear what you have learned from your time as an online teacher. With all that you're giving us, I hope that you're getting something in return. Wow. So let's take the last one first. First of all, by the way, thank you for those words. What am I getting in return? Actually, the payoff has been amazing because just like this weekend, I'm going to get on a plane Friday morning. I'm going to travel to San Francisco, California, take an Uber to Berkeley, California, and I'm going to spend the weekend meeting people who follow me online, meeting people who have been watching my videos, meeting people who are Olympus super fans, and talking about what I love and what I do and sharing that and trying to motivate people. And then I come home for a couple days and then I head out to Cleveland, Ohio, where I get to be the keynote speaker at a big event. And that's probably going to be between 300 to 500 people there. And I'm going to get to talk to all these people 4 times throughout the course of the weekend, spend time hanging out with them, that kind of stuff. So honestly, the return, that's the return. And it's awesome. I mean, yes, I get to pay my bills doing this, which is awesome. Somebody asked me the other day, I want to do what you do. How do I do that? And I told them, well, it only took me 43 years. So if you get started now, you're young enough, you can probably pull it off, right? Because either I just suck that bad that it took me that long, or the reality of it is you don't just decide you're going to do what I do. There are quite a few YouTubers out there, young YouTubers, that decided they're going to do what I do, but they don't do what I do. They're popular because of their personalities. They're popular because they're engaging, but they're not teaching you crap. They're just not, right? So, I think that's really the key there. And then what have I learned? I've learned all about photography. The great part of it is when you talk about it all the time, and when you teach it, especially when you go to do a video, if you have a conscience, which I do, you don't just spit out whatever's in your head and stick it out there for the world to try to learn from. You actually take the time to prepare information, meaning you go back and you research what you think you know to make sure that what you think you know is correct. And the neat part about that is I've relearned so much that I've forgotten over the years. Things that I knew or had encountered or had learned or had read about or had done and forgotten. And so honestly, the coolest part about what I do now, other than the traveling and the meeting people, the coolest part is getting to relearn photography and reignite my passion for photography and to make it fun. Yes, it's great that, essentially at this point I pick up a camera and I take pictures of what I want when I want, which is awesome. So I'm not tied to a client or a group of clients where I have to shoot what they need because they're the ones paying me. So certainly that is a bonus. And that's something that, you work really hard to earn that, right? Nobody gets to start out there. The minute you decide to turn pro, that goes away. But you stick with it long enough and you work hard enough, then, you get to the point where you're able to. So interesting question. Okay, so let's get to the questions here that are in the chat. Oh, Matt, you just got your 45-1.2. Yeah, you are going to love that lens, Matt. I mean, being a nature guy, it's probably not going to be your oh my God, #1 lens, but I'm sure you can imagine being a portrait guy, that 45-1.2, oof, to die for. I love that lens. So, all right, I'm going to take these backwards here because I know we've got a bunch of good questions, but we don't have a ton yet. So start typing, gang, okay? From Anthony. A friend of mine has invited me to her wedding. Here's every photographer's nightmare. A friend of mine has invited me to her wedding and has asked that I take a few photos for her at the reception. However, she has also said if I want, I can take some of the ceremony as well to build, and I'm assuming he's going to say to build his portfolio. So, Anthony, here's the challenge with this, right? First of all, your friend is being foolish. Now, I'm not going to say anything nasty about your friend. So before anybody does, and so Anthony went on to say any tips or suggestions we'd appreciate it. So let me start with a couple things. So please, nobody is going to trash the bride here, gang. So let's all behave, right? because we don't know the bride's circumstances. So what I mean by that, and sorry, Anthony, I digress for a moment, but every time I get an opportunity to say this, it's important to say because more people need to hear it. There are an amazing number of photographers. And when I'm saying photographers, I mean everything from amateurs to top name professionals. There are an amazing number of photographers today that will whine, bitch, gripe, complain, argue, bully the photographers who shoot weddings for $500. Stop it. Because you're all being jerks, massive bully jerks. Here's why. When you complain about the photographer that shoots a wedding for $500, and let's say you're the guy that's trying to shoot a wedding for just $3,000, which by the way is still too cheap, but let's say you're that guy, and you're complaining about the $500 wedding guy. You still need to stop. And here's why. Number one, the customer that's going to pay that guy $500 was not your customer in the first place. You don't get to say, I have a camera, I have a website, I deserve this much money. You have to earn that idea that you deserve it. And you earn it in your potential customer's mind, perceived value. Also, by bullying that photographer, you're being a jerk because, number one, we all understand. The $500 wedding photographer is not going to build a career at $500 a wedding, number one. Number two, you're overlooking the fact that in today's world, there are plenty of couples who simply can't afford even $500 to have wedding pictures done. Now, we can be jerks and we can make some kind of judgment based on the idea, well, maybe they shouldn't get married because they don't have money, yada, yada. Now, who are we to say that? Where do you get off with that? You don't get off of that. So basically, if photographers should not be allowed to do weddings for $500, you're also saying that people that can't afford more are not entitled to have photographs of the most important day of their life. That's crap. That is just complete and utter crap, right? So, that being said, there will be no judgment about the bride. However, Anthony, I will tell you that you are making a mistake if you just show up and do this, and she is potentially actually making a bigger mistake. So, it sounds to me like what you're saying, because you didn't type this, so I'm going to make an assumption. If I'm wrong, please correct me, Anthony. It sounds to me like she has a photographer who is going to be at least doing some or all of her wedding day. If that's the case, it is completely inappropriate for you to show up and start taking pictures at the ceremony. Unless you are sitting in a pew, or maybe sitting in a pew in the balcony off to the side. Not dead center, because the wedding photographer is going to want that spot. But bottom line, stay out of the way. Additionally, have respect for that wedding photographer. I don't care how much they're paying or being paid or any of the above. Have respect for that wedding photographer and ask them at the wedding, hey, when do you plan on giving the couple images? Because certainly I would like to share images with them, but I don't want to undercut your marketing and give them images too soon. So I will gladly wait until after you have shared your images and they have been posted online so that you get the marketing. That is the appropriate thing to do. So additionally, you should push back to this friend and say, look, I'm not opposed to doing that, but are you sure that your primary photographer is okay with that? Have you discussed it with them? And even better yet, you should ask for the contact information for that photographer and reach out to them in advance. Don't spring it on them on the day of the wedding. For those of you that shoot weddings, you've had that happen and you know it sucks. When you're all pumped, you get to a wedding, you're ready to go, everything's going great, and suddenly there's some bozo that is carrying like 75 different cameras who's acting like he's like Mr. Hotshot, and it's like, hey, the bride said I should do this. And you didn't know a thing about it, right? So Anthony is filling in here. Basically, it's me and her aunt because she can't afford the local professionals. Perfect. So the bottom line, Anthony, if the aunt's doing the ceremony, you need to talk with the aunt first. You need to work all that out so that you're not tripping over each other, so that you're not fighting over each other, because it is not a competition. if you both care about this young woman and her husband-to-be, you want to make sure, or wife-to-be, sorry, I'm making assumptions there, you should be making sure that you are working in concert, not opposite or against each other. And then, with the reception, same deal. If the aunt is responsible for shooting a reception, you should be coordinating with the aunt in advance. How do we want to handle this? Who's going to do what? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Because here's the thing. If you just take a camera along and take a couple snapshots, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but that's not going to help you with your portfolio, right? It's not going to do you any good for your portfolio whatsoever. So if you are looking at this as an opportunity to maybe create some images for portfolio, you need to be in a position where you have some control. You don't have to have control all day. You don't have to have control all the time, but you need to be in a position where you are able to say to the bride and groom, hey, I want you to come over here and I want you to do this and set up a shot, take a shot, etc. But if the aunt is the primary photographer, that makes you the second. Coordinate with the aunt, okay? Super, super important, okay? Eric, from Observing Joe, he has learned not to be afraid to fail. Learn from those beautiful mistakes. Pay attention and ask why, not how. And don't be afraid to open your eyes and ears. Yeah, I'm sorry. This was probably an answer to something else that somebody typed there. But you're absolutely right. I may have to steal that quote that you've put there. That's perfect. But it's all about failure, gang. I know a couple of you have asked if my keynote at Pixel Photo Fest will be recorded. I don't think it's going to be recorded. I'm sorry, but it is all about failure. It's called Don't Be Afraid to Suck. I haven't given up on the idea of getting it recorded yet, but you guys have to understand when somebody's paying me to come in and talk, I can't just walk in with a camera. There is a certain YouTuber who used to do that. He got people to pay $1,000+ for a workshop, and then he would shoot YouTube videos in the middle of the workshop. I don't agree with that. So I'm there to dedicate my attention to the people that have paid to come to the event. But certainly, I'm going to do my best to try and get something that I can share with the rest of you. And if it doesn't work out for this event, there's certainly, I'm actually really excited about this. I've talked about the concept of Don't Be Afraid to Suck in the past. I've done a video in the past about Don't Be Afraid to Suck. This keynote's going to take it to a whole nother level, and I'm actually really, very, very excited about it. So one way or another, we'll find a way to share some of that with you, I promise, okay? Let's see, Arnold here. Are there different laws or restrictions for shooting models in public, on the sidewalk, in front of business in different states and cities? Yep, there are. And countries. Add that to the list. There's a simple thought process that you should understand, though, Arnold, okay? You mentioned shooting in front of businesses, right? So let's start there. If you're shooting in front of a business, or even like a public building, maybe it's a tourist attraction, okay? There is an entity or person who owns the copyright to that. You don't. You own the copyright to your photo, but that does not give you the legal right to profit from that photo. So yeah, I mean, if you are going to include, these settings in your images, you should do some searching before you shoot about what the local rules and laws are. As far as like shooting on the sidewalk, those are nuisance laws. They're nuisance and risk laws. Some places you can shoot on a sidewalk as long as you don't set anything down, like no light stands, no tripods, things like that, because those are trip hazards. Light stands can fall over, they can hurt people, they can, broken glass, all that kinds of stuff. So yeah, I mean, the simple fact of the matter is you always have to do your research, right? That's just the way it is, and that's not a bad thing. I hear so many photographers, and I'm sorry, gang, this is gonna sound kind of a little judgmental, but I'm judging. It's lazy amateurs that have a problem with that. Plain and simple, right? Professionals understand the idea that you've got to put in the work, put in the effort, make sure that you are covered because of liability. In other words, you're running a business. So you do the legwork, right? And believe me, I've cut corners in my career. I have done stuff guerrilla style, but you still have to ultimately understand, copyrights, ownership of images, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So you've got to be respectful. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can pull something off really quick and get around the nuisance laws because after the fact, if you had 3 light stands on a sidewalk and you get the shot in and you take them down and you're gone, nobody's going to come after you after the fact because you set up those light stands. But if the building in the background is owned by someone who has copyright to it, they're going to come after you for using their building in your image without providing them any licensing fees, right? So, that's kind of what you've got to be aware of there, all right? All right, James, let's see here. I'm a Sony shooter. I'm sorry. My sympathies. I'm kidding. I have an A7 III and an A7R III. I was thinking about buying a third camera, and I was thinking about Olympus. What's a decent Olympus camera I could start out in, not low end, but mid-range? So, all right, full disclosure, right? You guys all know, I'm an Olympus Visionary. James, don't buy an Olympus camera while you have your Sonys. Yes, I just said that. I really said that. And I'm not saying you got to go out and get rid of your Sonys tomorrow. I'm just saying, look, if you really want to become good as a photographer, consistently good, you don't work with multiple systems. One of the things you all might want to pay attention to, like your pros, your high-end pros, the people that you admire, they use one brand and they use one model of camera. They don't use 3 different models. They use one model. So they may have 2 or 3 of the same, but they don't mix it all up, right? So even me, like, yeah, I have, a bunch of different Olympus cameras. I have a Pen F, I have the TG6s, and I'll go out and I'll play with those from time to time. When I say play, I mean play like you ain't never going to see those pictures. They're pictures like of my grandkids or, that kind of stuff. Anything that is going to have my name on it is going to be shot with an EM1 Mark II, or it's going to be shot with an EM1X, right? So, I would caution you about doing that. I mean, I really would. But given where the pricing is now, and I'm still going to tweak your answer a little bit. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be honest here. Given where the pricing is right now, if you're saying you want a mid-range camera, normally I would have said like the EM5, right? But at this point, I'm going to tell you, no, get an EM1 Mark II. Like right now, Olympus has a sale on with the EM1 Mark II, and I think it's the 14 to 150 kit lens, which it's like $1,499, $1,499, which is like an amazing price. That's a steal. But sincerely, as much as I love Olympus, I'm an Olympus ambassador. So yes, I talk about Olympus, and I talk about it because I love it. But Olympus knew from the day that they signed me as an ambassador that first and foremost, I teach photography, I teach best practices, and I want people to learn and succeed. So my sincere advice to you is don't mix up your systems, right? Because you want to be able to pick your cameras up, and you want them to be an extension of your mind. When you're switching back and forth between different brands, different models, and all that kind of stuff all the time, it simply gets confusing because you have to spend a lot more time thinking about what you're doing with that camera. So, okay. All right, so let's see, Anthony here. Did I miss part of your question here? You're interested in getting MY for monolight. Not sure what the MY is, but money-wise, you're looking at the Interfit S1, S1N. Suggestions? Well, so Anthony, here's the problem with a question like that, right? I want to help you, but you're being lazy. Sorry, not trying to be a jerk, but you're just asking me, well, okay, so what do I think about the S1N? I think it's a monolight. It's made by Interfit. They're good. It's sponsored by Interfit, and I do like their gear. I think it's good stuff. But none of that helps you at all. So how about telling me what you shoot? Why do you think you need that flash, right? Tell me the logic behind what it is about that flash. Because if you're like a lot of people, you want a pro photo, you can't afford it, so you're settling on the Interfit. And even if that's the case, tell me what it is that you shoot. Why do you need a flash with that kind of power to it? What are you trying to? Because obviously, I don't use those kind of flashes. So it's not my first choice, right? Just saying. So give me more information, Anthony, and I'll come back and I will try and help you spend your money wisely, okay? Perluigi, learn 2 important things from me. Cool. Plan every single photo to help you improve your, and I help you improve your English listening. Wow. Perluigi, as an Italian, if you can keep up with my English, I would say that your English is already pretty damn good. Just saying, because there's a lot of people that would say my English is horrible. Let's see. Anthony, thanks to my inspiration and tips, I'm actually going to have prints of a few of my shots at a local charity auction in spring. Dude, that's awesome. Like, very cool. Okay. Very cool. So, let's see. Tearoa, or Kia Ora. Sorry, gosh, so I really butchered that. I'm sorry. Show us the lighting for your live stream setup, please. Intrigued because I can't see the reflections in your lights or monitors and your glasses and your rims. Throw a small shadow. So the challenge here is I don't have it set up. I don't think I can bring in my cell phone right now. So bear with me. If I can actually do this really quick, I will. No, I can't. So I'll tell you what I'll do. Here, hang on a second. So let me, we'll do this here. All right, so, okay. So that's good. This is kind of ghetto, but it'll work here, right? All right, so what you're gonna see here first, I'm gonna zoom in. So I'm standing in front of, let's get that to focus there. I'm standing in front of a desk, all right? The camera that is on the left, all the way to the left above the computer, that's the one that you are watching me through. And up above me are 4 12-inch cheapy Chinese light panels. And they are aimed into a white scrim that I have set up and a white wall over on the right side. And then the green screen that you're seeing back there, that is what I use when I'm recording my stand-ups for my YouTube videos. And then on, on that, try that again. When I'm using the green screen, it's on the middle camera of the set, which would have a teleprompter. There we go. We'll get the camera to stop hunting, okay? And then up above, let me get the rest of it. For a hair light, you can see that there's a hair light way up in the ceiling. And that hair light, if I tip my head back that way there, you can see there's, you know, a little shadow or a little highlight, and then you're getting the rims. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that there's no direct light on me at all. And then just to give you a sense of height, I can touch the bottom of those lights with my arm outstretched. So this is it's a stand-up desk that, you know, raises and lowers and all that kind of cool stuff. So yeah, I do have a video coming that will show you the whole setup and show you how I live stream. I'll admit, when I switched to Olympus and started to try to use the Olympus cameras for video, I couldn't find any information on live streaming with Olympus, which kind of scared me a little bit at first. And actually, it's freaking awesome. So, I mean, I'm using an EM1 Mark II, which is what I'm live streaming with right now. That's what you're watching me on. And then when I shoot my tutorials with the camera, that's also an EM1 Mark II, which I shoot in 4K. And they're great. But I had to do a little bit of you know, problem solving initially because there was very, very little information on doing live streams with them. But yeah, they work awesome. So I've got a video coming out that's going to explain how I do all of that, because I've actually had people tell me, oh, you can't live stream with Olympus. Like, yeah, you can actually with quite a few of the Olympus cameras. The EM1X will, the Pen F does, a bunch of them do. So, so anyway, that's coming. Okay, so I hope that helps. All right. So let me just see here. Let's see, Photomix Media, referring to the previous question, what about permits to shoot at outdoor public places? Also, what about businesses that have signs on the sidewalk? Same thing, man. If there's signage like with a logo, that company owns that logo. So if you include that logo in, you know, your image, that could be a problem. But now, so let's just talk about the logo thing for a second, right? So follow along, gang. First disclaimer, and my buddy Nick is here, so he'll chime in after I say this, but first disclaimer, do not take your legal advice from some guy on YouTube. Please don't be that person, right? But that being said, here is, and I said my buddy Nick is an attorney. He's in here, but he's been to a couple of my workshops. But the advice I'm about to give, or not the advice, but the story I'm about to tell will cause him some heartburn. So when I used to shoot modeling portfolios full time, one piece of advice that is routinely given to models when shooting portfolio pictures is don't include logos of any kind, especially when we talk about t-shirts and stuff like that. Just bad idea. Now, the reason that advice is given, two reasons. Number one, distracting, and it's busy, right? Number two, it can be misleading, meaning don't take a picture like with an Adidas logo or a Nike logo and then be dumb enough to post your pictures and indicate that you modeled for Nike. Really bad idea. That said, if a girl was going to do a fitness shoot with me, when it came time to talk about those logos, I would tell her, don't worry about the logos. Don't worry about the Nike logo. Don't worry about Adidas stripes. Don't worry about a Puma logo. However, and I would consult her, make sure that you never tell somebody that you modeled for that company. Because in reality, what kind of social media or media in general backlash would a company like Nike get if they sued a model because the model had a picture in her portfolio where she's trying to get work and she's wearing a Nike swoosh? They would look like the most evil company in the world. So the reality is a company like Nike going to come after you because you've got their logo in a photo in the girl's modeling portfolio? Of course not. But if you take a picture of that girl in the Nike logo and you turn around and sell it for profit, could Nike legitimately come after you? Oh, hell yes. So, you know, and by the way, so you guys that are asking me these questions about permits and the questions about like licensing and stuff like this that Photomix Media is talking about here, you folks are the perfect candidates to join PPA, Professional Photographers in America. And, or if you're looking to go more in the direction of advertising photography, join ASMP. That's A as in Apple, S as in Sam, M as in Mary, P as in Peter, right? ASMP. ASMP is the American Society of Media Photographers. Both of those organizations have outstanding legal resources and educational material about licensing, releases, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure about ASMP, but with PPA, they even have attorneys that as part of your membership dues, if you get in trouble, these attorneys will at least counsel you initially and guide you in the direction of what steps you should take until you are able to find your own attorney to handle the situation. So it's an outstanding benefit that you get from these organizations. So if you're shooting stuff and you have concerns with that, then my sincere advice is yes, you should join one of those organizations and take advantage of the utilities they have. Unless, of course, you have you know, an unlimited set of resources where you can, you know, just go and hire your own attorney. So Anthony's asked, do I know if there's a Canadian version of PPA? Anthony, I don't, but I believe PPA handles Canada. I get it. They're Professional Photographers in America. Check out their website. I'm not factually sure, let's be clear, but I think they may. So yeah, you might want to just double check that. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Scrolling on up. Let's see. Well, actually, before I get to Mark's post there, I see there's one before that that's kind of important. So Kareem, I just ordered my 2 light honey badger kit last week, and my portraits have gotten so much better. I can't wait for the order to arrive. Wait. So your portraits got better because you ordered the lights, but the lights aren't there yet? I'm curious how that's working. Is that just like a mental boost? Because if it is, I mean, seriously, that's cool. But, because man, when I order stuff, my work doesn't get any better. I'm just saying. I want to be able to tap into that little piece of energy there. So anyway, so yeah. All right, so going back to Anthony. So Anthony's the guy that asked me about the Interfit S1. His response was, he's shooting portraits outdoors. So Anthony, I still got to ask you more questions, man. You're shooting portraits outdoors. How do you intend to use the Interfit S1? Is it going to be a one strobe setup? Are you going to modify the light? Meaning, are you using like a softbox, an octave box, and how big? That information is important. And are you intending to overpower the sun? Anthony, you're kind of giving, and again, man, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you're giving me like these short, lazy answers. All you're going to get is a gear opinion. So, Anthony, let me make it simple for you. If you want my gear opinion, why the hell would you buy an Interfit S1? Buy a Godox. Period. So, give me the details, man. It takes effort. Learning requires effort, hard work, right? You've been watching too many of these YouTube videos from the gear sniffers and the watch me, you know, do something stupid on a bicycle and take a picture of crap, or let me challenge another photographer junk. Like, what does that do? It doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't advance your knowledge base. Me telling you S1N is great or it sucks, either response doesn't advance your knowledge base. It doesn't help you, right? So, man, you got to give me some information or I can't do anything with it. So again, I'm not trying to be a jerk. You're either going to think I'm a jerk or you're going to understand I'm really trying to help, and you're going to give me a brain dump, man. All right? Let me know why you think you need this light. Tell me anything and everything you can. And then I can, from my experience, I can help you. All right? So, scrolling back up here. Let's see here. I did Kira's question. I know I got a bunch that I missed. Let's see. Anthony, I'll do my best to post one of the shots in your Facebook group. Actually, don't post one of the shots in my Facebook group. The Facebook group is for portraits only, right? Planned, executed, etc. portraits. But sure. I mean, it sounds like it'll be interesting, especially if it's like Joker or Harley Quinn. That could be very, very interesting. So, oh man. So who is this idiot? Let's get rid of this guy. Sorry, gang. We're gonna lose him. There we go. Okay, good. So next up, I did. Let's see. From Michael Brown, I'd just like to say that I appreciate your show. While I don't do portrait photography, but I appreciate your practical advice and inspirational messages. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. So, still scrolling back up here. I want to get some of the early ones. Darko has a question. Have I shot goth shots before? Any advice on black and white composition specific? The face will be white, the clothing very dark. How would you edit them for the best contrasting effect? So number one, totally not my thing. I'm not into the whole goth thing. So no, I've never done anything that's particularly goth. You know, I have to be honest, Darko. So let me get this in the right context so that it actually helps you. I don't know that I would ask for too much advice on how to shoot goth, and here's why. So hear me out so that you understand kind of where I'm trying to head with this. I am very confident that if I open up a web browser right now and we go to Google and we type in goth or goth images or goth photographs, well, actually, you know what? Why am I just talking about it? Let's do it. So here, I'm going to go to a web browser and I'm going to type in goth photographs. We'll do that, okay? And I'm going to click on the image tab in Google. Here, I'm going to take his question off, all right? So, Darko, the first thing I would suggest that you do is, like, look at the images that are here and basically go at it with the idea of, well, what do I like? What of these images has kind of the vibe that I'm into? So let's say, like, you like this image right here, okay? So what can we deduce from this image? Well, we can deduce a couple things. We can, number one, we can tell that it was probably shot with one light. Now, how do I know that it was probably shot with one light? Two indicators in here. Number one, the light is clearly above the subject and the shadows underneath. I've got the eyes are in shadow in part from the hood and part from the eyebrows, shadows under the nose, shadow under the chin, shadows under the breasts, right? Number two, I don't think there was any light on the background because this little bit of a glow that we see there looks very much like we used to do in the film days with dodging and burning. So it looks like it was burnt in. It does not look like it was actually lit. So, but what I can walk away from this is I can see, okay, high contrast black and white, all right? And I can see very strong directional lighting. There probably is a modifier on here, maybe a small softbox, maybe even an umbrella, maybe an octabox, but I don't think it was too big if I had to guess. So, you know, I could go through this wall and I could basically start to see, well, the majority of the goth pictures that are interesting, at least to me, right, are in black and white. There's some cool stuff in color along the way. But even this, when we look at the shot in color, So what have they done? The light's high, but the model's head is up. We have added an extra light in the background, and we've added some smoke for depth. So the way that I would approach it, Darko, is to kind of go through it with the idea of looking at these images and seeing what appeals to you, and kind of building your idea from there. Because you asked, well, should it be very dark, etc. Well, there's some goth images that we saw that are actually very high key, right? But it's more about kind of the character and the costuming. So, but that's honestly one of the greatest ways to do research, gang. So stay off the photography sites, stay off YouTube. You don't want to go find a video that says 5 tips for photographing goth models. Please understand, folks, that whenever you see a video that's 5 tips, 3 tips, 10 tips, it's clickbait crap. It just is. It's clickbait junk, because if you actually watch the video, you're going to watch a 15-minute video for 5 little tips, all of which are like 50,000 foot level tips. In other words, there's no real detail. There's no meat to them. They're not actually helping you at all, period. So, I would actually go look at actual images, find stuff that you admire, and then break it down. Because then what you're also doing is you're teaching yourself. Because believe it or not, you can teach yourself. I taught myself. A lot of people teach themselves photography. But you have to be willing to put in the effort. Kind of like I was giving Anthony a hard time before. You've got to be willing to put in the effort, okay? So that would be my response. FN89, good evening from Connecticut. Question, you had an interview some time ago with a photographer who uses a deep depth of field for his portraits. Do I remember his name? I certainly do. The gentleman that you were referring to, and I'm going to type his name in here, it's Mr. Will Cadena. He is a rock star, okay? Check out Will's website. If you Google him, you'll find his stuff right away. His stuff is awesome, okay? Michael Radloff, do you edit your own photos or send them out? If so, any recommendations? So a little bit of both. Michael, some stuff gets sent out, some stuff I do myself. I do all my base editing myself, and I do all of my finishing. And when I say finishing, I mean kind of the secret sauce, the textures, the colors, masking, overlays, those kinds of things I do myself. But Michael, what I would encourage you to do, join my Facebook group. If you're not a member of my Facebook group, the first question I have for you would be, why not, right? But join my Facebook group, and if you post the question in my Facebook group, the young man who I use, he's from India, his name is Saheen. He is a member of my Facebook group, and we will put you in touch with him via the Facebook group. I have a link right there in the chat window to the Facebook group. So, go ahead and join. I hope to see you there, okay? All right. Terry J Photography, the tool material that I use, is there a particular brand, style, length, or place that you buy yours from? Joann Fabrics is usually where I get most of my fabric. Length, as long as I'm not buying really expensive stuff, and tool is cheap for the most part. As long as it's not really expensive stuff, I almost always buy 3 yards, right? So that's 9 feet. And brands, nah, they're all over the place on brands. But there's some tool that's really thick and stiff, and some tool that's really thin and flexible. I use both. It depends on what I'm trying to create, right? But I do use both. But yeah, if you go to Joann Fabric, and actually, old school, folks, go to the store. Walk around. Be inspired, right? So yeah, actually go to a store, okay? So, all right, let's see. Ricardo asked the question about retouching, so I just gave you that information. Ricardo, same answer. Go ahead and join the Facebook group, and I will get you that information. And let's see here. So I'm just looking to see if I missed any back in the beginning. And let's see here. Mark Dolce, do I recommend the color checker passport? The color checker works great. I mean, if you're looking, if this is a piggyback to the gray card question that we had before, yeah, the color checker is a great tool. I highly recommend it. It's a little pricey, but it's very versatile. If you just want it for the gray card, nah. But if you're going to use it for, all the color dots and everything else, yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend it. Okay. Alan, question is, do you have any suggestions for a low-budget home studio setup with 2 lights in the background for headshots and half-body portraits? Well, Alan, I have a suggestion, but it's not going to be what you're asking for. You want me to tell you buy these flashes. Just as you've heard me give somebody else a hard time tonight, I'm not going to do that, right? That's not an answer that's going to help you. Here's what you need to do, Alan. Before you buy any flashes, you need to do your research with your credit cards tucked away and without any regards to price. Meaning you're not going to buy it right away. You're just researching. And you have to decide what is the ideal lighting system for you. And remember, I said ideal lighting system. So I didn't say go pick out the biggest and the best and the most expensive. If that's the case, just go to ProPhoto's website and you're done. If you're watching me, you don't need ProPhoto. That's not an insult. That's just keeping it real, folks. Okay? So go spec out your perfect lighting system. Maybe it's Godox like I use. Whatever. On paper, spec it out. Modifiers, stands, everything. And then once you've done that, go out and buy one flash, one stand. That's it. Oh, and a trigger. You need a trigger, right? One flash, one stand, trigger. No modifiers. None. Start using that one flash for portraits and headshots. Practice with it until you have gotten to the point that you can get good light with that one flash. No modifiers. It's possible. Then when you've mastered that, add a reflector. Doesn't even have to be an expensive photography reflector. It can be a $1 Walmart reflector, right? Then add a modifier. My recommendation would be a shoot-through umbrella, like a 32-inch shoot-through umbrella you can buy for less than $20. Then, and only then, after you have mastered each of those steps, buy the second light in your system and a stand, and then master those two. But Alan, if you have not done any lighting, which it sounds like you haven't because you're asking me what lights to buy, if you go out and buy 2 lights, you are going to make your learning curve twice as hard and you will suck twice as bad because you're making it harder to begin with. You're doubling the problem. So keep the problem simple. Start with 1, then add a second one. But before you buy 1, don't buy it based on price. You know, if you have to wait a little longer and save your pennies a little longer to get the strobes that you want, that's a lot smarter to do. It just is. In the meantime, learn how to shoot portraits by window light. But then you're going to be buying a system that you can use for a long time to come, and you're also going to be getting better work with it because you're going to know what you're doing. All right. Jose, any other place I could pick up seamless other than Allentown? Man, you don't want to come to Allentown to get seamless. Are you in Allentown, Jose? To pick it up, closest places to Allentown would probably be either Unique Photo in New Jersey or New York Camera and Video, which is actually down in like Richboro, Pennsylvania. It's right outside of Philly, even though it's called New York Camera and Video. But for seamless paper, I would order it direct from Savage, and they'll drop it at your doorstep, man. That's the easiest way to do it, honestly. Buy it direct right from the manufacturer. It's the same price as if you buy it at, B&H or Adorama. So go right to the manufacturer. Because keep in mind, if you buy it from like B&H or Adorama, Savage had to ship it to them. It got banged around their warehouse. Then they're going to put it in a truck and it's going to get shipped to you, right? So it's getting handled more. So you go right to Savage. It comes from you to, or from them, excuse me, to you direct, right? So less chance of it being, dinged up, banged up, all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, so I would order it direct. It's, let me get the website address. I believe it's savageuniversal.com. And their website also has an outstanding set of color charts so that you can see all the colors and everything. Yeah, so here's Savage's website there. I just put it in the chat window for you guys, okay? But yeah, honestly, I would start there, totally, okay? All right, so let's see here. Germano, do I have any plans to interview some macro photographers? You guys want me to interview a macro photographer? I could do that, actually. I could make that happen really pretty easily. There is a gentleman who is actually local to me. who is employed by Olympus. He's not a visionary, he's actually an Olympus employee. This guy is one of the most amazing macro photographers that I have ever seen, and I'm just scrolling through here to find some images so that I can share a link with you guys here. And where are we at here? Yeah, it would help if Joe could type, probably. Sorry. Bear with me. All right, well, I'll show you the Creative Live thing. So, oh, no, here it is, and it's on the Olympus website. Duh, okay. Wow, so this is actually for a workshop that just passed that was on Creative Live, but just to give you a sense of what he does, Chris McGinnis is just absolutely awesome, and he's local. So if you Google him, you'll find a lot of his work and that kind of stuff. So I could potentially arrange to get a macro photographer on here, because I look at his work and it's just like, wow, like seriously, wow. So anyway, let's see here. Ron, thank you for being one of the few straightforward photographers who offer no nonsense advice. Yeah, sometimes that gets me in trouble, but I try, Ron. So let's see here. Scrolling back up. Wow, am I all caught up on questions? Wow, you guys better type fast, because like, you know, it's 20 minutes. I could go like watch TV for the night. I think the AGT's on tonight. So let's see here. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Here we go. Here we go. So actually, Darklink 2004. Sorry, I missed this one a little bit earlier. But seriously, guys, start typing. I got a few more minutes here. So I've had clients that are absolutely beautiful in person. However, it seems they aren't very photogenic. Awkward smiles, expressions, etc. I've made it a habit to make them comfortable prior to our session. However, it seems like I'm failing them. Can you suggest some way that I can correct this or help bring out their best in their sessions? It seems like bringing the camera into the equation makes them nervous. I'm a bit lost. Well, you know, Darklink, unfortunately, without actually witnessing your process, it's hard to give you specifics, but I will tell you this, okay? It sounds like you're doing kind of what I would call a close but no cigar scenario, meaning you are aware of the need, you are putting in the effort, but as you have pointed out, there's a point where it's kind of still not getting the job done, right? So what that indicates to me is you're still missing some cues, right? Number one. Number two, maybe you should actually introduce the camera a little bit earlier. When I say introduce it, I don't mean start shooting right away, but certainly make sure it's a part of the mix as you're talking to the people, getting to know them. Three, understand that if you've got a person that's particularly nervous, one of the things that I will do, I'll burn off 100, 200, 300 frames right out of the box just to burn through those nerves. It's digital. I'm not shooting film. And also make sure that you are not the photographer that, you know, you bring your subject out onto the set, you put them in the posing stool or whatever, and then you go back to your camera and you're like fumbling and bubbling and your head's down with the camera and you're trying to figure stuff out, right? And all that kind of stuff, and you're ignoring your subject. That's giving your subject time to get all their nerves back. And please, another two things that you don't want to do, gang. Do not be this photographer. Takes the first test shot, looks at the back of the camera. Oh, crap. Really? No better way than to lose your subject. Even though the oh crap was meant for you, now your subject has no confidence in themselves or you. And then, on top of that, don't be the photographer that takes that test shot, looks at the back, even if you just think, oh crap, and then kind of puts the camera down around their neck and stands back and goes, staring at your subject like some magical epiphany is going to occur that it is going to tell you suddenly how to make this really crappy picture look amazing. So what do? Well, number one, you go all the way back to the beginning. Read your camera manual. Learn how to hold your camera. Make sure you actually understand the gear you're using so that it is an extension of your body. When you get in a car and drive the car, you do not pause and say, wait, how do I drive the car? You put the key in and you turn it, or you push the button and you drive. You pay attention to the traffic, you pay attention to the directions, but you do not think, how do I drive the car? But yet, we go out and we spend thousands of dollars, and for some of you, you spend as much on your camera gear as you do your cars. And yet, you still have to think about how to use your gear. That's problematic. So, if you find yourself in that situation where in your head, it's screaming, oh crap, don't stand there and stare at your subject. Especially if it's a young woman who's younger than you, and even worse, if she's in a bikini or lingerie or something like that. My God, no. Pick the camera back up to your eye and keep taking pictures. Yes, I've already established that it is a crappy picture, but while you are looking through the camera, you are actually seeing a picture. More importantly, what is your subject experiencing? Your subject is experiencing the camera aimed at them, and they are hearing what they really, really want to hear. Is please, gentlemen especially, don't think that your subject wants to hear, oh, yeah, oh, that's great, oh, awesome, oh, baby, that's hot. No, they don't. What they want to hear is click, 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 click. That's what they want to hear. So give them click, 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 because it builds their confidence. And then the best part, while you're holding that camera up to your eye and you are taking those crappy pictures, you are isolated. All your attention is on that image and what's wrong with it. It is easier for you to determine what you need to change. When you stand back and do this, your brain automatically is scanning, and it is processing all of the information all the way out to your peripheral, all the way around, whether you want to or not. You think that you are only paying attention to the subject standing in front of you. But the fact of the matter is, as a human being, you are not capable of only paying attention to that subject. You have to process all that information. So it's making it actually harder for you to solve the oh crap problem. Guys, that's science. Right? There's no right or wrong here. That's simple science. I am right. Ask any cognitive psychologist. So, you know, the challenge with this kind of stuff is you need to put in the effort that you're putting in DarkLink to build that relationship, because photographing people is a relationship. Absolutely. Sometimes that relationship lasts no more than, you know, a few minutes, but it's a relationship. So you have to create that relationship, but you can't suddenly turn it off when you start taking pictures either. You've got to make sure that you are keeping your subject engaged. You've got to make sure that you are giving them the right kind of feedback. And that's not to say that you never say, hey, it looks great, but it is to say that ultimately they want to hear click, click, click. The more clicking that's going on, the more that they are automatically going to assume like, hey, this is going really, really well. He's taken, you know, a lot of pictures, okay? All right, so going back to Anthony, because I gave Anthony a hard time here before. So he wants to use a softbox. He's going to try and overpower the sun in a 36-inch to 48-inch softbox. Okay, so Anthony, I've been tough on you already, so I won't go after the one thing I normally do, but I will say, so what you want to do is what every other photographer is doing, overpowering the sun with a big old softbox outside. Just saying, it's kind of boring, but if that's what you want, okay, then yes, the Interfit S1N would be a good choice because it's powerful enough, right? If you're gonna go out and do the overpower the sun thing, like any time of the day, anywhere, any place, it's ideal to have a minimum of 400 watt second strobe or 600 watt second strobe. But I will tell you, Anthony, honestly, if you don't already have any Interfit strobes, if it was my money, and well, you can't see many of them in the studio tonight because I've just got a big mess back there. I'm preparing for my travels. But if it's my money, I would be working with the Godox. So I would encourage you to maybe look at the Godox, in which case you could go with the AD400 for a 400 watt second strobe, or if you really have to have all that power, the AD600. But I will tell you that, 600 watt seconds is a wicked amount of light. It just is. Aside from those outdoor pictures, you're going to find situations where you're trying to shoot indoors with that 600 watt second strobe, and it's going to be too much light. You're not going to be able to dial it down far enough to be able to get the apertures that you want to work with. So, just keep that in mind. You might be better off, going with like a 400 and kind of splitting the difference. Okay. So, all right. Let's see here. Julie, I see your messages going by. I didn't forget your question, but I didn't see it when I went through. So, what focal length lens would I recommend for portrait photography if I had to choose only one? You have a Nikon D700. So you're shooting full frame. The D700 is full frame. That being said, I would use the Tokina 100mm f2.8 macro lens for portraits. That's the lens that I used to use. If you look at some of my older videos, I talk about that lens. I show that lens. The great part about that lens, Julie, less than $400 through Amazon. Amazing. Sharpest lens you'll ever find. Old school lens design. It's an all brass tube. Gorgeous, gorgeous lens. Highly recommend it. If you're going to go with Nikon brand lenses, which honestly I wouldn't, but if that's, if you had to stick with Nikon, I would go ahead and look at the 85-1.8. I'm not a big fan of the 1.4, the 1.2, or that kind of crap. It's just way too much money. But yeah, take a look at the Tokina, T-O-K-I-N-A, 100mm f2.8 macro lens. To die for. It's an amazing lens for full frame shooters. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Scrolling on up. Kodak sells a nice 400 watt second battery powered. Yes, that's the AD400. And let's see. Where are we at here? Life's beautiful. No, you definitely don't want to say, oh crap. It's not really the best way to, gain confidence. So let's see. Buster Bell 871N on the white balance subject. Does measuring off a white or gray card give the same result? Is there a difference and does it matter? Well, it depends on what you're doing. Right? If you're doing video, you want to work off of white. For me, if I'm if I'm working with stills, sorry, where was I? If I'm working with stills, depending on the camera, I would normally go with a gray card. However, the way Olympus does white balance, they do it off white. So they do video and stills exactly the same way. So it really kind of depends on how your camera is designed to work best. So a little trip through your camera manual will give you the appropriate answer, Buster Bell. Yeah, I mean, gray is kind of the standard for stills white balance. But again, some cameras are designed to work better with white. Nick, am I missing some notifications? I can't figure out when the Facebook photo reviews are scheduled. That's because they're usually not scheduled, Nick. Sometimes I'll post like in the middle of the afternoon, hey, I'm going to do a live check-in tonight. Other times I literally just kind of show up and do it. They're the random ones. The TogChat obviously is every Wednesday night from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday nights, we do the Tog Knowledge, group Zoom chat. But yeah, the Facebook reviews are a little bit random. Usually at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening, but still a little bit random. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, again, that's the Facebook group that I have. Once to twice a week, I go in and I do image reviews of images that are posted in the group. Okay, so there's the link to the group there so that you can go ahead and check that group out. Michael Williamson, just joining in. Can't wait to see you in North Carolina. Biggs camera. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Michael. It should be a really good day. I love Charlotte, number one. And I've never been to Biggs, so I'm really excited about being able to come down there. We're going to do a fashion portraiture demo in the morning, so you get to see me do live composite and drown a camera and all that kind of crazy stuff. And then in the afternoon, we're going to do a photo walk. The plan is to actually work with a ballet dancer for the photo walk, so it should be a lot of fun. I'm definitely looking forward to it. So I will look forward to seeing you there. Okay. All right. Now, just Natasha. Hi from Memphis. How you doing? So let's see here. Scrolling back up. Let's see. Spinning wheels photography. Have I used the Interfit Badger Unleashed, the battery powered lights? If so, how do they work? I have not used them. Spinning wheels photography. I know quite a few people that have. They are very, very happy with them. You know, my stance at this point would be, if you've already got Honey Badgers by Interfit, those are the AC powered ones, or if you have the Interfit S1 or whatever, okay, then I would say, yeah, go for the Badger on Leech. They're a great addition to the system. If you are looking to buy a new lighting system and you want lithium batteries, I don't know why. I mean, I hate to say it, because again, I don't mean this as a diss to Interfit. I want to be really clear. Great gear, really good prices. But I don't understand why anybody would not purchase Godox lighting unless they can afford ProPhoto. And hopefully, even if you can afford ProPhoto, you're not going to buy it unless you truly have a need for it. Just saying, right? And let's be really clear, folks. I am not sponsored by Godox. I do not get free Godox gear. Nothing, right? All the stuff I have, I own. I've purchased it. My travel kit is Godox. My studio kit is Godox. I've bought it all. So I believe in it. Okay. FN89, I've heard this term snapshot used a lot when referring to portraits. Can you explain what makes a portrait a snapshot? A snapshot for me, it's not even about a portrait, FN89. It's just a snapshot is a picture that's a grab shot, right? It was spur of the moment, click, boom, okay? That's a snapshot. As opposed to a portrait, which, in my opinion, a portrait is a shot that required some effort, some planning, some interaction. Now, could you be walking down the street and meet someone and say, oh my God, this person's very interesting. I want to make a portrait of them. Well, my assumption would be, if you want this to be a really good portrait, you're going to establish a relationship, have a conversation with them, talk to them, look for the best lighting, look for the best camera angle, and then create an image by shooting not 5 or 10 frames, but 100 frames or 150 or 200 frames, right? That's a portrait. If you're going to walk down the street and find somebody and say, hey, they look really interesting, click, 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 you know, rapid fire, 7 frames a second, boom, walk away. That's not a portrait. That's a snapshot, right? So that would be my definition of the two. I hope that helps. Okay. All right. Let's see. Mark Dolce. When it comes to gear, we all need to ask: do you need it or do you want it? Big difference. Have you met my wife? Yeah, I'm with you there. So, Robert Julian, I will hazard a guess that everyone here has a better camera than Ansel Adams did. Yeah, you know, there are people that would actually debate that, Robert, but I understand the gist of what you're saying, and I, of course, would agree with you. I think maybe if we change the word better to being a camera with more capability and higher quality lenses, hell yeah, absolutely. But yes, you know, the gist of your statement is, of course, that, you know, it's definitely not the camera, it's what you're able to do with the camera. And in that sense, Ansel Adams pretty much had us all beat, right? So yeah, so I'm definitely with you on that one, okay? All right, let's see here. Okay, so here's a comment that I don't think I've ever gotten before, I must say. Ken Weiberg, some days I hate riding my motorcycle on Vancouver Island to shoot bears, but it makes me miss the show. Seriously? Okay. You're the first person that's given me that excuse, Ken. I'm not even sure where to go with that. Per Luigi, where are we at? I got a couple minutes left here. So, Per Luigi, tell us your most difficult experience in photography, maybe for some strange thing who the client wants or other difficulties you have met and how you solved it. Ooh, wow. Most difficult experience. Yeah, wow. I would need some time to think about that, Pellucci. So 2 stories come to mind. One is a scary, and this doesn't directly answer your question, but just, you know, if we're telling stories, so I'll give you 2 short stories. One is from, well, they're both from my days doing newspaper work, but one is my early newspaper career. which was when I was like 20, 21 years old. And actually, this story took place when I was 19 years old. And then the other one was from a brief stint doing newspaper work in my 40s for the Morning Call here in Allentown. So the first story actually was the day that I was shot at. Thank God they missed. But back in the 70s, late 70s, spot news was everything. So, you know, newspaper photographers, we had police radios in our cars, scanners. We wore scanners on our hips, like you lived with a scanner 24/7. You always had your ear to the scanner. And we covered everything, every accident, every fire, every police, you name it, we covered it. Like spot news was king. And it was competitive. I mean, it was brutally competitive. So we got a call for a guy held up in a house with hostages with a gun. And it was about maybe 5 minutes for the newspaper. So, you know, I run out the door with a writer. We drive there, and it's in this residential neighborhood full of townhomes. And we pull up, and we see a moving truck in front of a house, which was the house that was in the dispatch. And there's 2 cop cars parked. And without really paying attention, I hop out of the car and start running towards the house, and then start to realize that there's cops like ducked behind cars. And the one cop starts yelling at me. He's like, get down, come here. So I go over and I huddle on the ground, like, you know, kind of next to this cop behind the car. And he's less than happy that I'm there, but nonetheless, he's like, look, just stay down. And he leaves and he goes to the next car over behind that car. So a few minutes later, guy comes out the front door. There's a cop, by the way, standing at the front door of the house, like yelling in the door, trying to talk to whoever's inside. A guy comes out, I hate to say looking crazed, but looking crazed. Not wearing a shirt. It's the middle of summer. Not wearing a shirt. Hair's all a mess, carrying a rifle, right? No machine gun, none of that crap. It was a rifle. And it's basically he's having a standoff with the cops. So the cops back then, you know, they were not trying to shoot the guy. They did not want to shoot him. They were not trying to kill him, none of that. They honestly didn't think the guy would actually do anything. This went on for about 5 minutes, the conversation with a cop, and then it started getting a little bit heated. I was being really aggressive, and I started kind of inching out past the back of the car. So I was essentially out in the open, kind of exposed. And finally, this guy sees me while he's getting really agitated with the cop and turned towards me, at which point I dove back over the back hood of the car as the guy fired off a shot. Much to the credit of the cops, they did not shoot back. There was a lot of screaming and yelling that took place, but immediately the cop that was standing by the door like tackled the guy, and you know, nobody was hurt, everything was fine. So that was maybe one of the dumber things I ever did. But then I topped that. This was probably, let's see, early 2000s. This was probably about like 18 years ago. There was a forest fire on a spot just a bit north of here called Blue Mountain, which is also, one side of the mountain is a big ski area. And the other side, it's just trees and that. So the closest you could get to this spot where the fire was, and literally probably a mile-long stretch of the top of this mountain was on fire, just flames. And they had helicopters come by, dumping buckets of water and that kind of stuff. And the pictures were crap because I was just way too far away, and there were no roads closer unless you were up on top of the mountain, and all those roads were closed off. So the people that lived in the houses where I was, on the road where I was, they were talking about how they go hiking up there on all that because apparently the Appalachian Trail goes through there. So finally I looked at one of the guys and said, could you take me up there? And he kind of looks at me for a minute like, seriously, I mean, could you get me close? And he's like, well, yeah, sure. So I'm not kidding when I say I'm a city boy, like all the way, hands down. So this guy heads out through the weeds, through the woods, and we take off. And we start heading up this mountain. And we get to a part about probably 2/3 of the way up the mountain. And we're maybe 100 yards from where you can see there's fire. And you can hear the firemen in the brush, but I can't see them yet. And the trees had these colored markings on them, like just as far as you could see. There was this row of colored markings. The guy's like, all of a sudden he just stops as we're, you know, trudging along. Because I'm like, I can hear them, I can see the fire. I'm like, okay, I'm getting close. And the guy's like, this is as far as I go. And I turned around and I look, I'm like, what do you mean this is as far as you go? He's like, you can't leave me. And he's like, I'm not going any further. He's like, you see those markers? Once you cross into there, you're on government property. You're breaking the law because that's a fire scene. I was like, are you serious? You came all the way up here to basically tell me you're not going to take me, like, and here I am in the middle of the woods, right? So at that point, I was faced with the decision of, well, do I go back with a guy and be safe? Or do I be the ultimate idiot and keep going? I kept going. And sure enough, got myself to the point that I was all turned around, had no clue where the hell I was. The fire was getting closer and closer where I was. I could hear the guys right at the point where the fire was probably about 30 yards away, and I was kind of trying to back away from it. Finally, two of the firemen came down along a little path, and I ran into them. And of course, they were very surprised to see me, but they were also in the middle of trying to fight this fire. So it's not like they could escort me out. So it was pretty much like, just stay out of our way. And that was it. And so the best part is, yes, I spent the next 3 hours getting great pictures of the firemen taking care of this fire, and then getting a ride out later on one of their trucks, and then getting a really, really, really good butt chewing from the commander of that fire group that was there. So, okay. Let's see, Natasha. So 2 last things here really quick. I'm over time. One, if you get a photo from the day from like Shutterbug Magazine website, does that make you an award-winning photographer? Yeah, I mean, to some degree. The phrase award-winning photographer is, it's whatever you want to make of it, whatever you think is important. I don't get hung up on that. And I say it, my bias is award-winning photographer, because I win awards, yeah, I mean, that's an honor, right? Somebody recognized your image, gave it an honor. So yeah, you've won an award, and there's no reason for you to not say, hey, I'm proud of this and I won an award. So the only people that are ever going to poke at that, Natasha, are the people that are jealous and the people that are too lazy to try and win an award. So yeah, I mean, I don't see any problem with that, okay? Ricardo, due to the mirrorless tech, do you think secondhand DSLR lenses will be cheaper? Eventually, yeah. I mean, I don't know that DSLRs are going away immediately. I just don't think they are. But yeah, will there be some really good secondhand lens buys to have? Yes, I do think there will be. So, Gregory Hauser, how many people are attending the all-day shoot at Looking Glass? How will you handle several hundred but still get to shoot? Gregory, don't worry. There's not going to be several hundred at Looking Glass. It's capped out at 12 for the whole day thing. The morning part is just a demo. And so if you have the choice to do both, you want to do both, because the morning part is basically me showing you how I do what I do. It's only 2 hours long. I think that one's capped at like 17 or 20 or something like that. But the afternoon, it's capped at 12 people. And I think as of today, there's 10 people signed up, Gregory. So everybody's going to get, and my goal initially, the way we timed it out, was so that everybody would have about a 20-minute window essentially to do the challenge. All right, so because it's one person shooting at a time. There's no, no paparazzi crap, none of that. It's with strobes. We'll be using Godox lighting, but I have the triggers for all the different brands, the whole bit. So yeah, so believe me, you'll get to shoot, okay? That's the whole idea. I want people to have to pick up a camera, interact with the model, and make creative decisions, even at the risk of failing. So yeah, don't worry, we'll make it work. All right, gang, I gotta roll. So let's see, we're at 94 minutes. So that's like 188 minutes you owe me for next week. I will be back next week, even though I'm in between Berkeley, California and Cleveland. I'll be coming back home in the middle. And then I head out next Thursday to go to Cleveland. So I hope to see you then. In the meantime, do get out, take pictures. And remember, whatever you do, please don't forget.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.